Welcome. The goal of this video is to talk about the basics of creating a meeting agenda. So the purpose of an agenda is to help people plan meetings, to make sure that meetings are effective and useful. And so it helps us figure out what are the goals of the meeting, how is the meeting going to be timed out, who's going to present what. And so after this plan has been created, then generally an agenda is shared with the participants in the meeting so that they can help accomplish the meeting goals. Using an agenda during a meeting can help people stay on topic, stay on time, stay focused because they know what's happening and what's going to come next. They are prepared to talk about those topics. Using an agenda during a meeting can also facilitate note-taking. And often we will refer to notes from a meeting as meeting minutes. And so these can sometimes be important documents that organizations or teams can refer to see what was discussed in a meeting, what was decided in a meeting, and what assignments were given in the meeting. And this is especially important if someone was missed a meeting, but even people who attended the meeting often need to go back and refer to the meeting minutes or the meeting notes. And so an agenda can help facilitate the process of taking those notes. So the main components of an agenda are usually a header section and then a body section. Now, I found this template on the internet. It's got some good things that we would expect to see in an agenda, but it's not great. So let's review at least the things it has that are helpful. The first is it does have a name or purpose or the goals to the meeting listed at the top. And I guess this one sort of has the participants because it mentions the design team. It might be more helpful to list specifically which members of the design team are expected to attend this meeting. Then it is typical that we would see date and time of the meeting at the top. This is missing location, so we would expect to see that as well. Is this an in-person meeting? If so, which room is it in? Is it an online meeting? If so, what is the Zoom or other kind of teleconferencing software link? Then the body of the message tends to include the topics, what's going to be discussed during the meeting. And it may have details about those topics. It may have links to documents that support the discussion of those topics. This is pretty weak, but pretty basic. Now, at the end of the document, or at least somewhere in the document, there should be space for action items. And action items are assignments that are assigned to meeting participants during the meeting to carry out the decisions that are made during the meeting. And so this one, maybe that priority task situation might be used for recording action items. And of course, as we mentioned, meeting agendas can be used to help take meeting notes. Now, sometimes this might happen at the end of the document. Sometimes it happens within the topics of the document. That might be a better way to do that. So let's look at some other components of a meeting agenda to talk about how this one's pretty basic, but it could be better. So in that header section at the beginning, as I mentioned, we often have the name of the meeting, the purpose or the goals of the meeting. It may be a weekly meeting, but maybe it's a one-off meeting. And so stating what is the goal or the purpose of this meeting is really important. What's terrible is to go to a meeting and not know what is supposed to happen at the meeting. Why is this meeting happening? If there isn't a clear purpose or goal to the meeting, don't hold the meeting. And then who is expected to be at the meeting? And some people have a list of who should be attending, and then during the meeting, they might record who isn't there. And that can be helpful then to realize, maybe this perspective wasn't provided at the meeting, or maybe we need to make sure that someone gets the notes from the meeting because they didn't attend. The date, the time, and the location are important to include on the agenda. So one, it can serve as a record. So we can go back and say, when was that decision made or when was that topic discussed? But also it can inform people so that everyone's on the same page and they know when that meeting is supposed to happen. Now, in addition to that header section, we have the body where the majority of the topics for the discussion are included. So in addition to listing the topic for discussion, we might list who is presenting it. If it's not one person, the person who's leading the meeting that's leading every discussion, it might be individual members of the team that are reporting. And so listing who's going to report on that topic, how much time they're going to take, and providing details, links, or attachments, and making sure that those documents are accessible by everyone in the meeting. So if you're using shared documents like Google Drive documents, making sure that the permissions are fixed before the meeting starts so that everyone can view those documents. Another thing to consider here is using action verbs to describe the topic. So instead of just saying something like quarterly results, which is just a noun phrase, what are you supposed to do with the quarterly results? Is this because you want to report on them? Is this because you want to discuss them? Is this because you want to set goals? So using some action verbs, whether it is to discuss, decide, um, investigate, what is the goal of that portion of the meeting in relation to the topic? Making that clear can help people be more prepared for the meeting so they know what to do when that topic comes up on the agenda. But it can also help the team manage their time well, because if they've accomplished already through their discussion what the goal is, then they can move on. And if they haven't, and the time's up, then they might know that we need to add this to the agenda for next time because we still haven't resolved this issue. So after the topic section, additionally, we want to have space for notes, or as I mentioned, it can be called meeting minutes. And these are recording important details that were discussed during the meeting, including action items. And so sometimes on a meeting agenda, this might be something that comes up. One of the first items is to review previous action items or previous assignments from the last meeting. What is the progress on those? Did the work get done? Were decisions made? Do you need to report back? So now we can make a decision based on the information that someone was supposed to collect. But then also making sure that there is room on the agenda for making new assignments. Now, sometimes it's a separate box or a separate portion where we list all of the action items for the meeting, and that can be really helpful because then you can just sort of copy that section and add it to the top of the next agenda to review those previous assignments. Sometimes action items maybe there's a column off to the side for action items, or they're just made in line with the topic. So as we record what was discussed, if there's an action item, then it's recorded. If that's the case, you might want to use bolded text or use something to help flag it so that it's easy when we skim back through the meeting notes, we can see what the action items are. So here's another example of a meeting agenda. And we see it's got the name of the meeting, it's got the date and the time. It doesn't have the location, which is something I would recommend this one add. Who's leading the meeting, who's coming to the meeting, and then we have our main body, right? And so we've got the timing for each of the main topics, what the main topics are, and who's going to present each of those main topics. Now, what it's not using here is maybe some action verbs, at least in the beginning part, but you'll see in the second part, it talks about review, approve, edit. So maybe throughout the rest of this agenda, they're using more of those action verbs. We don't see space for taking notes or for recording action items, but maybe that's at the bottom of the document. Here's an example of a meeting agenda from a group that I meet with sometimes on campus. And I like some of the things that they do in this meeting agenda, so I wanted to share it, just, blocking out some of the meeting, the group specific information. So they have their header at the top, and they actually explicitly state their meeting norms. So that even if someone is new to the group, they could read the agenda and know what their expectations are for the group. So I think that can be really helpful. Then they have their kind of annual goals for their department, and they just reprint this on their meeting agenda each time, just to remind people, like, this is why we hold these meetings, because we're trying to collaborate so we can reach these high-level goals. Then they've got the agenda items below, and this is sometimes it's a collaborative agenda where anyone can go in and add. That's a meeting agenda I work with another group. In this one, they want you to reach out to the director who manages this document, and that director will add people's agenda items to the agenda. They've got the date, they've got the time, they've got the location, it's on Zoom. Okay, and what's interesting here is that this group rotates who takes the lead in the discussions. So there is an agenda and everyone knows the items, but someone each week is in charge of being kind of the host or the facilitator. They guide the group through the agenda. Someone else keeps time and reminds people, okay, we've got 1 minute left on this item. Let's make a decision, or let's add it to the agenda for next time to talk more. And then they're assigning someone specifically to take notes, because when you're leading a meeting, it's really difficult to also take notes when you're facilitating the discussion. Here, I think we can look at, I don't have another slide that shows, but you can see at the very bottom there that they have the timing for how long each discussion topic will take. And then they've used the word activity to describe the different topics that they will discuss. And they assign a specific person sometimes who will be talking about each item. And then they take notes within the document there. They have a box at the end then where they will, anytime they make an assignment, an action item, they'll record it within the agenda, but then they'll copy and put it at the bottom. So they've got a consolidated list of those assignments or action items. So this is an example of another way to design meeting agendas. Go ahead and look at a variety of different templates, but keep in mind some of these main components that are useful and helpful for a meeting agenda, and find a meeting agenda style that works for you and your teams.